The massive alien warships appeared above Earth without warning. 300 vessels, each one larger than any human spacecraft ever built, hung in the sky like dark clouds blocking out the stars. People in every city looked up and saw them, their sleek silver hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Fear swept across the planet in minutes. Inside the United Nations headquarters in New York, emergency alarms blared. World leaders scrambled to gather in the main assembly hall. Nobody knew what these visitors wanted, but the sheer size of their fleet made one thing clear. This was not a friendly visit. Within an hour, a transmission came through every communication device on Earth. Televisions, phones, radios, even old emergency broadcast systems crackled to life simultaneously. The face that appeared was alien, undeniably so. It had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, smooth blue skin, and a mouth that seemed too wide for its narrow face. When it spoke, the words came out in perfect English, though clearly translated by some advanced technology. People of Earth, I am Admiral Ketharon of the Zorathi Dominion. We represent the Galactic Concordate, a union of 47 intelligent species spanning this region of space. Your solar system has been evaluated and claimed under Concordate expansion protocols. You have 72 hours to acknowledge your new status. Secretary General Maria Martinez sat at the main table, her hands clasped tightly to keep them from shaking. Around her, representatives from every major nation stared at the screen in stunned silence. The alien continued speaking, its tone businesslike and almost bored. Your species will become a vassal state under Zorathi administration. You will maintain internal governance of your planet, but all military forces must be dissolved. An annual tribute of resources will be calculated based on your system's output. Refusal to comply is not an option presented to civilized species. We expect your formal acceptance within the designated time period. The transmission ended as abruptly as it began. The silence in the assembly hall was deafening. Then everyone started talking at once, shouting, arguing, demanding answers that nobody had. Martinez raised her hand for silence. It took 3 tries before the room quieted down. We need information, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. Get our scientists working on analyzing their ships. I want military advisors assessing their capabilities, and someone find out if this Galactic Concordate is something we should have known about. Over the next 12 hours, humanity learned the basics. The Galactic Concordate was real. It had existed for thousands of years. First contact protocols had been established centuries ago for situations exactly like this. Every species that joined the Concordat did so peacefully, accepting their place in the established hierarchy. Wars were rare, ritualized affairs with strict rules. Surrender was normal. Fighting to the death was considered barbaric. The Zorathi had never lost a negotiation. Their fleet size alone convinced most species to accept vassalage. The alternative, they claimed, was destruction. But destruction never actually happened. The threat was always enough. Admiral Ketharon appeared for a second transmission 24 hours later. This time he took questions. Martinez represented Earth, her face projected onto the alien flagship's main screen. What happens if we refuse your terms? She asked calmly. Ketharon's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture that his translator noted as confusion. Refuse? Species do not refuse. The terms are generous. You maintain your culture, your government, your way of life. You simply acknowledge concordant authority and contribute to the common prosperity. But what if we do refuse? Martinez pressed. Then military action would be required to ensure compliance. The Admiral's tone suggested he was explaining something obvious to a child. However, I assure you this is unnecessary. Once you understand the benefits of concordant membership, you will see that resistance serves no purpose. Every species eventually accepts this truth. And if we fight? Ketharon made a sound that the translator interpreted as a laugh. Fight? Against 300 warships? Secretary General, I have studied your species. You are newcomers to space travel. Your weapons are primitive. Your largest vessels could fit inside my shuttle bay. I do not wish to be cruel, but you must understand the reality of your situation. The Concordat has maintained peace for millennia precisely because we are strong enough that no one questions our authority. Martinez nodded slowly. I see, in these 72 hours? A courtesy, to allow your government time to organize the transition. We find that new species appreciate time to adjust emotionally to their new circumstances. Use this time wisely, Secretary General. Prepare your people for their entry into galactic civilization. When the transmission ended, Martinez turned to face the assembled military commanders and world leaders who had been listening to the exchange. Her expression was grim but determined. 72 hours, she repeated. General Hammond, I need those evacuation plans implemented immediately. Get every civilian out of the orbital stations and off-world colonies. Bring them back to Earth or move them to the outer system facilities. General Hammond frowned. You're not actually considering surrender, are you? Martinez smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I asked what happens if we refuse, he told me. Now we know exactly what we're dealing with. She stood up, straightening her jacket. They think we'll surrender because everyone else did. They think their fleet size will scare us into submission. They think we're like every other species they've encountered. And we're not? Someone asked. No, Martinez said quietly. We're not. We're human, and humans don't surrender our freedom because someone bigger shows up and demands it. We never have. We never will. She looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. 72 hours. That's not time to organize a surrender. That's time to prepare for war. Now let's get to work. The room erupted into motion. Orders were given. Plans were made. And high above Earth, the Zarathi fleet waited patiently, certain of their inevitable victory. They had no idea what was coming. The research came in quickly. Human intelligence agencies pulled every scrap of data they could find about the Galactic Concordat and the Zarathi Dominion. What they discovered was both encouraging and terrifying in equal measure. The Concordat had indeed maintained peace for thousands of years. But peace, it turned out, was a relative term. The galaxy's major civilizations fought wars according to strict rules that all sides followed. Fleets met in predetermined locations. Battles lasted until one side signaled surrender. Casualties were counted carefully. When losses reached an agreed-upon threshold, the losing side yielded and negotiations began. Dr. Sarah Chen, head of the newly formed Xenocultural Studies Division, presented her findings to the UN Security Council. Their entire concept of warfare is fundamentally different from ours, she explained, pulling up charts and historical data on the main screen. The last major Concordat war was between the Vrolti clans and the Tesseract Collective. It lasted 3 years. Total casualties on both sides, 40,000 individuals. They considered this catastrophic. General Hammond whistled low. 40,000 in 3 years. That's a slow Tuesday in human history. Exactly, Chen continued. I cross-referenced their combat records. The Zarathi have participated in 6 military actions over the past 5 centuries. Their most costly battle resulted in 800 dead. They retreated immediately after. In their culture, that level of loss is considered shameful for the commanding officer. Secretary General Martinez leaned forward. So they've never fought a total war. No concept of fighting to the last soldier. No understanding of what happens when a species decides that defeat is not an option. None whatsoever, Chen confirmed. And there's more. Their defensive technology is impressive, but it's all optimized for energy weapons. Plasma cannons, particle beams, directed energy systems. Those are the accepted weapons of Concordat warfare. Let me guess, Admiral Patricia Okoye said with a slight smile. They banned kinetic weapons? Considered primitive and unpredictable, Chen said. Nuclear weapons are forbidden as unnecessarily destructive. Biological warfare is unthinkable, and anything involving antimatter is classified as a war crime under Concordat law. They fight clean, predictable battles with agreed-upon rules. They're going to hate us, someone muttered. Martinez stood and walked to the window overlooking the city. The alien ships were visible even in daylight, dark shapes against the blue sky. What about their tactics? Conventional fleet formations, Admiral Okoye answered, pulling up tactical displays. They approach in organized groups, shields overlapping for maximum protection. They maneuver slowly, maintaining formation integrity. It's actually quite beautiful from a mathematical standpoint. Each ship knows its exact position relative to every other ship. Beautiful, Hammond grunted, and predictable. Those formations are target-rich environments. One good spread of missiles and you could take out a dozen ships. They don't use missiles, Okoye said. Not really. They have torpedoes, but they're slow energy-based weapons designed for sieges, nothing like our modern missile technology, and their point defense systems. She shook her head. Barely functional. They're designed to shoot down other energy torpedoes, not high-velocity projectiles. Martinez turned back to face the room. So we have technological advantages they don't expect. What about intelligence? Have they studied us? Oh yes, Chen said, pulling up a new file. Their cultural database includes extensive information about Earth, history, literature, technical specifications. But here's the interesting part. Admiral Keith Aaron accessed our military history files yesterday. He spent considerable time reviewing World War II data, and he filed a report dismissing it as ancient history. His exact words, according to our signals intelligence, primitive conflicts from their pre-spaceflight era. Modern humans show no signs of such barbaric behavior. They appear to have matured into a civilized species suitable for concordate integration. The room fell silent. Then General Hammond started laughing. It was a harsh, bitter sound. He thinks we evolved past war. He thinks we got soft. He thinks we're like them, Martinez said quietly. He thinks we follow rules. Fight fair. Surrender when the odds are bad. She looked around at the assembled military leaders. Are we like them? No, ma'am, Okoye said firmly. We're absolutely not. Over the next 48 hours, humanity mobilized for war. It happened quietly, efficiently, with the coordination that only comes from thousands of years of practice. Every military base went to full alert. Reserve forces were called up. Factories switched to wartime production. The civilian population was moved to designated safe zones, though nobody really believed anywhere would be safe if the aliens decided to bombard the planet. But Earth's defenders weren't planning to lose. They were planning something the Zorathi had never encountered. Asymmetric warfare on a scale that would make the aliens' orderly battles look like chess games. Admiral Okoye coordinated the space defense forces from a command center built deep under the Rocky Mountains. Her tactical board showed every human asset in the solar system. It wasn't much compared to the Zorathi fleet. Humanity had 73 combat-capable vessels, most of them converted freighters and mining ships. Against 300 purpose-built warships, it should have been no contest. But Okoye had no intention of fighting a conventional battle. Hidden in the asteroid belt were platforms that had been launching kinetic kill vehicles for the past 60 hours. Silent, cold, and moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The Zorathi sensors would never see them coming. They were designed to detect energy signatures and active propulsion. Inert chunks of metal accelerated to relativistic speeds were effectively invisible. Stealth frigates equipped with experimental quantum shunt drives were positioned throughout the inner system. The drives weren't perfect. They could only maintain stealth for short periods. But they didn't need long. Just enough time to get close, just enough time to deliver their payloads, and the payloads themselves would be a nasty surprise. Nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers, railguns with depleted uranium penetrators, antimatter warheads, each one carrying enough destructive potential to vaporize a Zorathi cruiser. All the weapons the Concordate had banned because they were too terrible, too indiscriminate, too effective. 72 hours are almost up, Hammond reported. The Zorathi are moving into position at the edge of the system. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, demanding our formal surrender. Martinez looked at the countdown clock. 3 minutes remaining. Send them nothing. No response. Let them wonder. They'll interpret silence as defiance, Chen warned. Good, Martinez said. Let them be right. The clock hit 0. High above Earth, Admiral Ketheron waited for a response that would never come. He was confident, certain of his victory. After all, no species had ever been foolish enough to fight the Concordate. But he had never met humans before, and he was about to learn a very expensive lesson about the difference between civilization and surrender. Admiral Ketheron stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Harmony, watching the tactical display with growing irritation. The 72-hour deadline had passed. Earth remained silent. No surrender. No communication, nothing. This is unprecedented, his second officer, Commander Vreth, said nervously. Perhaps their communication systems are damaged. No, Ketheron replied. They received our transmissions. They simply choose not to respond. It appears we must demonstrate our resolve. He turned to his weapons officer. Prepare to advance. Standard battle formation. We will move to Mars orbit and hold position. When they see our fleet at close range, they will understand the futility of resistance. The Zorathi fleet began its advance. 300 warships moved in perfect synchronization, maintaining the classic Concordate battle formation that had intimidated countless species into submission. Shields overlapped, creating layers of protection. The formation looked impressive, powerful, and absolutely unstoppable. It was also the perfect target. The kinetic kill vehicles had been launched 71 hours earlier. They were simple weapons, really. Dense metal cylinders accelerated to 12% of light speed. No warheads, no explosives, no complex systems. Just mass and velocity. The oldest weapons in the universe, traveling too fast for energy shields designed to deflect particle beams and plasma. The first wave struck without warning. One moment the Zarathi fleet was advancing confidently. The next moment 17 ships simply exploded. The relativistic projectiles punched through shields like they weren't there. Through armor plating, through multiple decks, releasing kinetic energy equivalent to multiple nuclear weapons on impact. Ketheron stared at his tactical display in shock. "What happened? Report." "Unknown impacts," his sensor operator shouted. No energy signatures detected before impact. No missile launches. No warning at all. Ships 7, 12, 15, 18, the second wave hit. Then the third. The carefully maintained formation shattered as captains broke ranks, desperate to evade an attack they couldn't even see coming. But you can't dodge a bullet after it's fired, and these bullets were crossing the distance between Mars and the asteroid belt in less than an hour. "Evasive maneuvers," Ketheron ordered. "Full defensive spread. Activate all countermeasures." But countermeasures designed for slow-moving energy torpedoes were useless against kinetic projectiles. The Zarathi ships scattered, abandoning their formation. It saved some of them. 43 ships were destroyed in the first 10 minutes. Crews that had trained for orderly, civilized warfare died screaming as their vessels were torn, apart by weapons traveling too fast for their eyes to see. Then the second phase of the human attack began. Stealth frigates materialized throughout the scattered Zarathi fleet. The quantum shunt drives brought them out of hiding directly alongside enemy cruisers. At point-blank range, they opened fire with every weapon they had. Railguns, firing solid tungsten slugs at hypersonic speeds, tore through Zarathi armor. Nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers burned through shield generators before the aliens could react. Missile pods launched swarms of smart munitions, each one carrying a small antimatter warhead. The missiles weren't sophisticated by human standards, but against ships with minimal point defense, they were devastating. Commander Vreth watched in horror as a human frigate, no larger than a Zarathi shuttle, destroyed 2 cruisers before the Zarathi could even target it. They're not following any recognized combat doctrine. They don't maintain formation. They don't signal their attacks. They're fighting like animals, Ketheron whispered. His world was collapsing around him. In his entire career, spanning 60 years, he had never seen combat like this. The humans fought without honor, without rules, without the civilized restraint that separated warriors from murderers. A young officer named Selkith, manning the communications station, intercepted a human military transmission. The translation came through clearly. "Target the command ship. If it has the most decorations and the biggest profile, that's where their admiral is. Kill the head and the body dies." Selkith's blood ran cold. They were hunting the Eternal Harmony specifically. They were trying to kill Admiral Ketheron. In concordant warfare, commanding officers were given special protection. Their ships marked as valuable targets for capture, not destruction. The idea of deliberately targeting leadership was considered barbaric. "Admiral, they're coming for us," she reported. Ketheron looked at his tactical display. 43 ships destroyed. 26 damaged beyond combat effectiveness. The battle had lasted 12 minutes. In 12 minutes, the humans had inflicted casualties that exceeded the Zarathi's worst defeat in 500 years. And they weren't stopping. A human destroyer, heavily damaged and venting atmosphere, turned directly toward the Eternal Harmony. Ketheron's weapons officer locked targeting and fired, hitting the small ship with multiple plasma bursts. It should have been destroyed. Instead, it kept coming. "They're on a collision course," Vreth shouted. "They're going to ram us." Ketheron couldn't believe it. Ramming was suicide. The crew would die. Everyone would die. No rational commander would sacrifice their vessel and crew just to damage an enemy ship. But the human destroyer came on, engines burning at maximum, leaving a trail of debris and escaping air. Hard to port. Emergency power to shields. The Eternal Harmony began to turn, its massive bulk moving slowly. Too slowly. The human destroyer, smaller but far more maneuverable, adjusted course to match. At the last moment, Ketheron saw the name painted on its hull. UNSS Defiant. The collision alarms were still sounding when the Defiant struck the Eternal Harmony's port side. The human ship's reactor core detonated on impact. The explosion tore a massive hole in the flagship's hull, destroying 3 decks and killing everyone in the port weapons section. Selkith was thrown from her station. Emergency lights flickered on. Alarms wailed. Through the chaos, she could hear Admiral Ketharon giving orders to abandon the damaged sections. His voice was steady, professional, but Selkith could hear the fear underneath. She pulled herself back to her console and looked at the tactical display. The human ships were reforming, preparing for another attack. They had lost maybe a dozen vessels. The Zorathi had lost more than 60, with dozens more damaged. "They're not warriors," Selkith said quietly, speaking to no one in particular. "They're apex predators. They don't fight to win territory or gain honor. They fight to kill, to survive. They'd rather die than surrender." Commander Vreth heard her. He looked at the tactical display, at the human ships that kept coming despite their losses, and he understood. The Concordat had spent thousands of years creating rules for civilized warfare. They had forgotten that war itself was fundamentally uncivilized. The humans hadn't forgotten. They probably never would. "Admiral," Vreth said quietly, "I recommend immediate retreat to Neptune orbit. We need to regroup and report this to the Concordat." Ketharon wanted to argue. He wanted to order one more attack, to restore his honor, to prove that the Zorathi could not be defeated by a primitive species. But he looked at his display, at the ships he had lost, at the human vessels that kept fighting even when damaged and dying, and he made the only rational choice. All ships, fall back to Neptune. Maximum speed, maintain defensive formation. The Zorathi fleet retreated, leaving behind the wreckage of dozens of ships and the bodies of thousands of crew members. As they fled, Admiral Ketharon composed a message to the Concordat High Council. His hands shook as he recorded it. "We are not facing a civilized species. The humans fight without honor, without rules, without any regard for their own survival. They deploy weapons we banned millennia ago. They sacrifice their ships and crews willingly. Request immediate reinforcement. The humans do not fight like any species we have encountered. They fight as if extinction is preferable to surrender." He sent the message and slumped in his command chair, suddenly feeling every one of his years. Behind him, young Selkith watched the human ships on her display, and she prayed to gods she didn't really believe in that the Concordat would listen to the Admiral's warning. She had a terrible feeling they wouldn't. The Concordat High Council met in emergency session on the neutral station orbiting the dead world of Tharval. Representatives from all 47 member species gathered in the Great Assembly Chamber, a vast hall designed to inspire awe and unity. Today it inspired only chaos. Admiral Ketharon's message played for the 3rd time. The assembled delegates watched human weapons tear through Zorathi ships. They saw the destroyer ramming the flagship. They heard Ketharon's shaking voice as he begged for reinforcements. Council Speaker Valthamon, an elder of the Lidari species, raised his hands for silence. It took several minutes for the chamber to quiet. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 3 centuries of leadership. "The matter is clear," he said. "The humans have committed acts of barbarism. They have used forbidden weapons. They have shown no respect for the civilized conduct of warfare. We must respond with overwhelming force to teach them the cost of such behavior." Not everyone agreed. Ambassador Tresh of the Havani Collective stood, her crystalline body chiming softly. "Perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans are defending their home system. We initiated contact with demands of surrender. Perhaps a diplomatic approach would yield better results." Negotiation? War leader Karn of the Khazin Empire slammed his massive fist on his console. "They destroyed 60 Zorathi ships. They killed thousands. This aggression cannot stand. The Concordat has maintained order for 10,000 years because we do not tolerate such violations." The debate continued for hours. The moderates argued for caution. The military powers demanded action. In the end, military strength won the argument, as it usually did. The decision was unanimous, at least officially. The Vrolthi clans, the Tesseract Collective, and the Khazin Empire would send a combined fleet to Sol System. 2,000 warships, the largest military force assembled in 5 centuries. They would overwhelm the humans through sheer numbers, force their surrender, and then begin the long process of teaching them civilized behavior. War leader Karn himself would command the fleet. He studied the human combat recordings carefully, confident he could counter their tactics. They rely on surprise and unconventional weapons, he told his staff officers. We will approach with shields at maximum, sensors on full sweep. We will detect their kinetic weapons before they strike. We will maintain spread formation to minimize casualties from any single attack, and we will not, under any circumstances, allow them to draw us into close combat where their ramming tactics could be effective. It was a good plan. Solid. Based on the best military thinking in the Concordat, it should have worked. On Earth, Secretary General Martinez received intelligence reports about the massive alien fleet heading toward Sol system. She convened the UN Security Council once more. The mood in the chamber was tense but determined. 2,000 ships, General Hammond said, pulling up tactical projections. We hurt them badly the first time, but those were second-rate Zarathi forces. This is the real deal. 3 of the Concordat's strongest military powers working together. Can we win? Martinez asked bluntly. Admiral Okoye considered the question carefully. In a conventional battle? No, they have the numbers and this time they'll be ready for our kinetic weapons, but... She smiled grimly. We're not going to fight a conventional battle. We're going to fight a human battle. Over the next weeks, while the alien fleet crossed the vast distances between star systems, humanity prepared. Every civilian facility in the solar system became a military asset. Colony ships were retrofitted as Q-ships, hiding massive weapons behind innocent-looking hulls. Mining operations throughout the asteroid belt rigged entire asteroids as improvised weapons, ready to be hurled at enemy formations. Every settlement from Mercury to Neptune transformed into a fortress, bristling with hidden defenses. But the greatest preparations happened in orbit around Jupiter. The gas giant's massive magnetic field and violent storms provided perfect cover, hidden deep within the Great Red Spot, protected by radiation that would fry any normal sensor system. An entire human battle group waited. 23 warships, the newest and most powerful vessels in Earth's fleet, sat silent and dark. And in the depths of Luna's underground cities, thousands of hackers and AI specialists worked on humanity's most ambitious project. Dr. Lisa Park led the effort, coordinating teams from every major nation and corporation. The Concordat's fleet network is sophisticated, she explained to Martinez during a secure video call, but it's designed for coordinating friendly forces, not defending against intrusion. They've never needed to worry about cyber warfare, because all Concordat species follow the same basic protocols. They trust their systems. Can you break it? Martinez asked. Park grinned. Ma'am, I grew up on Earth's internet. I've been fighting digital warfare since I was 12. These aliens designed a network for efficiency and cooperation. We're going to turn it into a weapon. The Concordat fleet arrived at the edge of Sol system 2 months after the first battle. War leader Karn broadcast a message to Earth, his massive frame filling screens across the planet. Humans of Earth, you have committed acts of war against the Galactic Concordat. You have violated the laws of civilized combat. You have rejected our generous offer of integration. Now you will face the consequences of your barbarism. You have one final opportunity to surrender. Yield now and you will be shown mercy. Refuse and you will be destroyed. You have 12 hours to respond. Martinez didn't bother with a response. She simply activated the military protocols. Across the solar system, human forces moved into position. The trap was ready. Karn interpreted the silence as defiance. After 12 hours, he ordered the fleet to advance. 2,000 warships moved into Sol system in a spread formation, sensors at maximum sensitivity, shields layered for redundancy. They moved slowly, carefully, watching for any sign of human attack. They reached Jupiter without incident. Karn frowned at his tactical display. Where were the humans? Their small fleet should have engaged by now. Unless the Great Red Spot erupted. Energy signatures bloomed across Karn's sensors as 23 human warships powered up their systems and emerged from their hiding place. At the same moment, human cyber warfare teams activated their intrusion protocols. The Concordat fleet network had one critical vulnerability. It assumed all connected ships were friendly. When Dr. Park's AI began feeding false orders into the system, the network distributed them automatically. Navigation systems received contradictory commands. Weapon targeting computers locked onto friendly vessels. Communication channels flooded with meaningless data. Chaos spread through the Concordat fleet like a virus. Ships broke formation trying to verify their orders. Some fired on each other. thinking they were defending against human attack. Others went dark, captains choosing to shut down their network connections rather than risk being controlled by the enemy. In the confusion, the human battle group struck. They didn't try to win through superior firepower. They created chaos, targeting command ships, destroying communication relays, forcing the massive alien fleet to fragment into smaller groups that couldn't coordinate effectively. Throughout the outer system, other human forces attacked. Q-ships revealed their true nature, hitting supply vessels and isolated cruisers. Asteroid bases launched waves of missiles and kinetic projectiles. Mining drones, reprogrammed for combat, swarmed larger ships like angry insects. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't honorable. It was brutal, dirty, asymmetric warfare at its finest, and it was devastatingly effective. Admiral Martinez broadcast a message from her command center on Luna. It went out on every frequency, in every language the Concordat used. She spoke calmly, clearly, and with absolute conviction. You came to our system believing you could take our freedom with threats. You don't understand humanity. We've been fighting for survival since we crawled out of the ocean on our homeworld. We've fought each other, fought nature, fought extinction itself. We don't surrender. We don't yield. We win, or we make damn sure no one else does either. She paused, letting her words sink in. You want to teach us civilization? We are civilized. We build, we create, we dream. But we also remember that civilization is a choice we make every day, and that choice is only meaningful if we're strong enough that no one can take it from us by force. So here's our counteroffer. Leave our system now and we'll let you go. Stay, and we'll show you exactly why humans are still alive after millions of years of evolution on one of the deadliest planets in this galaxy. War leader Karn watched his fleet disintegrate around him. 800 ships lost, hundreds more damaged. The human cyber attack had crippled their coordination. And worst of all, he could see dozens of human weapons platforms hidden throughout the system, still waiting to fire. He had more ships than the humans had weapons, but how many of his people would die proving it? For the first time in his long military career, Karn considered retreat. The shame would be enormous, but the alternative was continuing to feed his ships into a meat grinder, fighting an enemy that refused to follow any civilized rules. He made his decision. All ships withdraw to the Oort cloud. Maintain defensive formation. Cease offensive operations. The Concordat fleet retreated, leaving behind wreckage and bodies and the shattered remains of their certainty. They had come to teach the humans a lesson. Instead, they had learned one themselves. The Concordat High Council met again, but this time the mood was very different. Fear had replaced confidence. The military powers that had pushed for war now sat silent, their representatives unable to meet each other's eyes. 800 ships destroyed, 12,000 personnel dead or missing, and the humans had barely scratched their defensive capabilities. Council Speaker Valthman looked older than his 3 centuries. He had lived through peace, prosperity, and the slow decline of the Concordat's military readiness. Now he faced a crisis unlike anything in recorded history. We have 3 options, he said quietly. We can continue the war, committing our entire military might until either we win or there is nothing left to win. We can attempt to destroy Earth from orbit, rendering the system uninhabitable, or we can negotiate. Negotiation is surrender, War Leader Karn said bitterly. He had aged visibly in the weeks since his defeat. The moment we treat with them as equals, we admit that force cannot compel them. Every vassal species in the Concordat will see our weakness. Ambassador Tresh chimed softly. Perhaps they should. Perhaps it is time we reconsidered our methods. We have maintained order through threat of force for 10,000 years. But what happens when we encounter a species that does not fear our threats? We destroy them, Karn said flatly. Before they destroy us, can we? The question came from an unexpected source. The eldest speaker, the Lidari who had led the council for longer than most species had been spacefaring, spoke for the first time. His voice was weak with age, but everyone in the chamber fell silent to hear him. I am old, the eldest speaker continued. Very old. I remember things the rest of you have forgotten. Things we chose to forget, buried in archives that no one reads anymore. He activated a holographic display. Ancient images appeared, showing devastation on a scale that made the current conflict look like a minor skirmish. This was the galaxy 12,000 years ago, he said. Before the Concordat, before the rules of civilized warfare, species fought with every weapon they could devise. They used physics itself as a weapon. They deployed devices that could sterilize entire star systems. Billions died. Whole civilizations vanished. We created the Concordat to prevent such horrors from ever happening again. He looked directly at War Leader Karn. The humans fight like the old species, the ones who nearly destroyed all life in this sector. We thought such species were extinct, that evolution and enlightenment would eventually tame all intelligent life. We were wrong. The chamber remained silent. The eldest speaker continued, "If we continue this war, the humans will escalate. They have shown remarkable restraint so far, only using weapons sufficient to drive us back. But we have seen their history. They possess the knowledge to create planet-killing weapons. They have theoretical designs for star-disrupting devices. They have never built such things because they never needed to. But if we threaten their existence, they will. And they will use them. Then what do you suggest?" Falthmon asked. "We negotiate," the eldest speaker said, "not from weakness but from wisdom. We recognize that some species cannot be conquered, only befriended or mutually destroyed. And we choose friendship." 3 days later, a small Concordat vessel approached Earth under a flag of truce. The eldest speaker himself led the delegation, a gesture that shocked everyone who knew Concordat politics. The leader of the High Council never left the neutral station. His presence meant this was no ordinary negotiation. Secretary General Martinez met the delegation in a conference room overlooking Earth. The planet showed scars from the conflict. Orbital stations destroyed or damaged, but it still turned peacefully in the void. The eldest speaker looked at Martinez with his ancient eyes. "You have taught us a difficult lesson, Secretary General. We came to your world believing that might makes right, that our superior numbers and technology gave us authority over you. We were wrong." Martinez studied the old alien carefully. "We didn't want this war. We offered to talk from the beginning." "You offered to talk as equals," the eldest speaker corrected gently. "We were not prepared to accept that. We are accustomed to being the strongest power in this region. We forgot that strength has many forms. So why are you here now?" Martinez asked. "To offer surrender terms?" "No," the eldest speaker said. "To offer friendship. If you will accept it." The negotiations lasted 2 weeks. The Concordat delegation was shocked by humanity's terms. No tribute. No vassalage. Complete sovereignty for Sol System. A mutual defense pact between equals. Technology exchange programs, with humans sharing their tactical innovations and the Concordat sharing their advanced power generation and FTL travel systems. "You could demand more," the eldest speaker observed during one session. "You have proven you can defeat our fleets. You could insist on territory, on reparations, on acknowledgement of human superiority." Martinez shook her head. "We don't want superiority. We want freedom. We want to live our lives without someone threatening to take everything from us. We want our children to grow up in a universe where might doesn't automatically make right. Then why develop such terrible weapons?" Ambassador Tresh asked. "Why maintain the capacity for such destruction?" "Because peace is a choice," Martinez said firmly. "And that choice is only meaningful when you're strong enough that no one can force you to choose otherwise. We maintain our weapons so we never have to use them. We stay strong so we can afford to be kind." The eldest speaker was silent for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "You are wise beyond your years as a spacefaring species. Perhaps you will teach us something after all." The treaty was signed on neutral ground aboard the station at Tharval. Representatives from all 47 Concordat species attended. Humanity was recognized as the 48th member, with full sovereignty and equal status. The treaty included a new provision, written specifically to acknowledge what the Concordat had learned. It was called the Human Precedent. It stated clearly that some species could not be integrated by force, that the Concordat must recognize the right of strong, determined peoples to maintain their independence. That strength, properly applied, could earn respect rather than enmity. Admiral Catharon attended the ceremony. He approached Martinez during the reception afterward, his bearing stiff with discomfort. "I owe you an apology," he said formally. "I came to your world expecting easy victory. I underestimated your resolve and your capabilities. Many of my people died because of my arrogance." Martinez considered her response carefully. She could be gracious. She could also be honest. She chose both. "Many of my people died too, Admiral. On both sides, we lost good people because we couldn't find a better way to communicate. I hope we've learned from that. Have you forgiven us?" Catharon asked. Forgiveness will take time, Martinez said honestly. Trust has to be earned. But we're willing to start building that trust if you are. Catharon bowed, a gesture of deep respect in Zarathi culture. We are. And I promise you, Secretary General, the Concordat will not make the mistake of underestimating humanity again. 10 years passed. The Concordat and humanity built strong ties. Trade flourished. Cultural exchange programs introduced humans to the wonders of galactic civilization, while aliens discovered human art, music, and literature. Some Concordat species even began adopting human military tactics, creating specialized forces trained in asymmetric warfare. Then a new species appeared at the Concordat border. The Shikari were aggressive, expansionist, and completely uninterested in negotiation. They had destroyed 2 minor Concordat species before the Council even realized they were under attack. The High Council convened to discuss response options. War leader Karn, older but no less formidable, presented various military scenarios. All of them involved significant casualties. Perhaps, Ambassador Tresh suggested carefully, we should consult with the humans. They have experience dealing with aggressive species. Secretary General Martinez, now serving her 3rd term, was invited to address the Council via secure transmission. She listened to the situation report and reviewed the tactical data. Then she smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. The Shikari have destroyed 2 of your species? She asked. Killed millions? Refused all attempts at communication? Yes, Valthmon confirmed. Then you don't need the entire Concordat fleet, Martinez said. You need humanity to handle the negotiations. Give us authorization to enter Shikari space and we'll explain the situation to them. 2 weeks later, a human diplomatic mission arrived in Shikari territory. It consisted of 3 ships, 1 destroyer, 1 cruiser, and 1 diplomatic vessel. They broadcast a simple message. We represent the Galactic Concordat. You have attacked our allies. You have one opportunity to stand down and negotiate peacefully. We recommend you take it. The Shikari, confident in their military superiority, responded by attacking the small human force. The battle lasted 7 minutes. When it was over, the Shikari flagship was a drifting wreck. The rest of their fleet had scattered, and the human ships were holding position in orbit around the Shikari homeworld. The second message was even simpler. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. The choice is yours. The Shikari chose the easy way. Within a month, they had agreed to peace terms, reparations for the species they had attacked, and a provisional membership in the Concordat. They never explained exactly what the humans had said to them during the final negotiations. They didn't need to. Word spread quickly through the galaxy. Humanity had become the Concordat's enforcer, the species you called when diplomacy failed and military action was required. But more than that, humanity had become the living reminder that the universe was a dangerous place, and that peace was maintained not through wishful thinking, but through the credible threat of overwhelming retaliation. In the UN headquarters on Earth, Martinez stood at the window overlooking the city. New York had been rebuilt after the war, stronger than before. In the night sky, she could see the lights of orbital stations and passenger ships. Humanity had joined the galactic community, but on their own terms. General Hammond joined her at the window. The Concordat is grateful for our help with the Shikari situation. I'm sure they are, Martinez said. And I'm sure other aggressive species will think twice before attacking Concordat members now. Humanity has a reputation. Does that bother you? Hammond asked. Martinez thought about the question. We didn't start this. The Concordat came to Earth demanding surrender. We taught them that some things can't be taken by force. Now we're teaching the galaxy the same lesson. Is that a bad thing? I don't know, Hammond admitted. But I know one thing for certain. Nobody will ever try to force human surrender again. We've made that very, very clear. Martinez smiled. Good. Let's keep it that way. Outside, Earth turned peacefully in the void. And across the galaxy, species both old and new remembered the day humanity joined the Concordat. The day the rules changed. The day the universe learned that there are some species you don't threaten, you don't attack, and you definitely don't try to conquer. Because humans don't surrender. They never had. They never would.